Listen closely, because what I'm about to say is not accidental, and it is not for everyone. If you found yourself here, if these words are reaching you at exactly this moment, it's because something ancient and intentional has already been unfolding in your life. You were never overlooked. You were never forgotten. And despite how isolated things have felt, you were never walking alone. You were held the entire time, even when it felt like you were barely surviving, especially then. There's a reason your life hasn't looked like the lives of the people around you, a reason your heart feels deeper, your thoughts heavier, your emotions more intense. A reason you've been misunderstood in rooms you tried desperately to belong to. You weren't built for comfort. You were built for calling. And that calling comes with weight. It comes with silence. It comes with seasons where it feels like the universe stepped back just to see whether you would break or remember who you are. You are the chosen one, not in an arrogant way, not in an ego-driven way, but in the quiet, costly, soul-forged way that requires endurance, humility, and a faith that kept breathing even when everything else felt like it was dying. Think back for a moment to the times you gave more than you received, the moments you trusted people who later turned cold, distant, or outright cruel, the times you were blamed for things you didn't do or criticized for simply being too much or not enough at the same time. You felt it, didn't you? That sharp confusion, that ache in your chest where logic failed to explain why those things kept falling apart when all you wanted was peace. There were betrayals that cut deeper because they came from people who promised safety. There were endings you never got closure from, conversations that replayed in your mind late at night, making you wonder if you were the problem. And slowly, subtly, doubt tried to take residence in your spirit. Doubt whispered that maybe you were invisible, that maybe no one was watching, that maybe your pain didn't matter. But here's the truth you were never told in those moments. Heaven was watching you more closely than ever. Some of your hardest seasons weren't punishments, they were preparations. The loneliness didn't mean abandonment, it meant separation. You were being pulled away from environments that would have clipped your wings before you ever learned how to fly. While others blended in, you were being refined. While others were applauded, you were being protected from premature visibility. You see, when you are chosen, delay is often disguised as rejection. Silence is often disguised as neglect. But none of it was random. None of it escaped divine awareness. You didn't imagine how heavy things felt. You didn't exaggerate that exhaustion in your bones. You've carried emotional responsibility that wasn't yours to carry. You stepped into roles you were never meant to hold permanently. You became strong because there was no other option. And strength like that doesn't come from ease. It comes from surviving storms no one else sees. There were moments you cried alone because you had learned that explaining your pain only invited judgment. Moments where you smiled just to spare other people discomfort, even while your inner world was collapsing. You may have even questioned God directly, wondering why obedience seemed to come with loss, or why doing the right thing kept leading to the hardest outcomes. And still you stayed kind. Still you stayed aware. Still you didn't harden completely. That alone should tell you something. The fact that you're still standing, still searching for truth, still longing for meaning, means the fire didn't consume you. It refined you. And now something is shifting, quietly, powerfully, irrevocably. There's an intervention unfolding that you cannot yet fully see. A recalibration is happening beneath the surface of your life. Things that once drained you are beginning to lose their grip. People who dismissed your worth are slowly being removed from positions of influence. Patterns that repeated for years are suddenly breaking, not because you forced them to, but because it's time. You might feel it as restlessness, as vivid dreams, as sudden clarity about situations you once rationalized, as a growing discomfort with staying small. That's not anxiety, that's awakening. You were never meant to shrink to survive other people's limitations. You were never meant to beg for spaces that required you to abandon yourself for acceptance. The very pain that marked you also marked you as different, as watched, as protected, even when you didn't feel protected. And here's the part few talk about. When you are chosen, opposition often comes early. Darkness tries to intercept light before it matures. Confusion tries to distract clarity before it stabilizes. That's why your life felt heavy before it felt hopeful. That's why the attacks came before the affirmations. That's why you learned endurance before you learned reward. But hear this clearly now. Nothing that tried to destroy you succeeded. Every attempt failed. Every plan collapsed quietly behind the scenes. And even the damage that did occur was repurposed into wisdom, empathy, and discernment. You walk differently now. You see through things you once fell for. Your soul recognizes truth faster. And even though the journey has been painful, it has sharpened you in ways comfort never could. Something is about to rise in you that cannot be ignored anymore, not loudly, not forcefully, but undeniably. A grounded knowing, a calm authority, a peace that doesn't need permission. You don't have to chase validation anymore. You don't have to prove what you carry. Those who are meant to recognize you will, and those who don't were never meant to walk with you into what comes next. You are held in ways you cannot measure. You are seen in ways that go beyond human acknowledgement, and you are never alone, no matter how quiet the room gets. This is not the end of your story. This is the moment it begins to turn. If this message resonates deep in your chest, not just in your mind, let it settle, breathe, receive it. You didn't endure everything you endured just to remain where you are. There is more moving toward you now, and you are ready for it. There's a part of your story that never made sense to anyone else, because it was never meant to. The battles you've fought weren't always visible, and they certainly weren't fair. While others were dealing with surface-level struggles, you were wrestling something far deeper. Forces that tried to erode your confidence, rewrite your identity, and convince you that endurance was the same thing as defeat. But what they didn't understand was that every trial was building something in you that couldn't come and be stolen. You've walked through emotional deserts where hope felt rationed. You've endured storms that didn't just threaten your circumstances, but questioned your faith itself. There were seasons where it felt like you were fighting shadows, unseen pressures, sudden losses, resistance that appeared the moment you tried to move forward. And yet you kept moving, sometimes crawling, sometimes doubting, but never completely turning back. That strength most people never develop. You weren't fighting people as much as you were fighting patterns, spiritual resistance, and cycles that wanted to repeat until you forgot who you were. The fatigue you felt wasn't weakness. It was the cost of carrying weight that others refused to acknowledge. The reason rest didn't always feel restful is because your spirit stayed alert while your body tried to recover. And through it all, God saw everything. Every tear you wiped away before someone walked into the room, every time you chose silence to avoid conflict, even though speaking up would have been easier, every time you trusted again after being disappointed, every moment you were faithful when no one was watching and no reward was promised. Nothing escaped divine awareness. What's powerful about your journey is not that you avoided pain, but that pain didn't define you. You learned discernment where others learned bitterness. You learned patience where others learned resentment. That didn't happen by accident. That happened because your spirit refused to collapse under pressure. And now, something interesting is happening. The same forces that once felt confident opposing you are beginning to hesitate. The same people who underestimated you are rethinking their assumptions. The same environments that thrived on your silence are growing uncomfortable with your presence. You can feel it. The tension has shifted. The resistance isn't gone, but it's different. It's reactive now. Because you're not who you were when the battle started. Your strength is no longer raw survival. It's grounded awareness. You no longer need to prove anything. You don't need to announce your healing. It speaks for itself in your boundaries, in your calm, in what you refuse to tolerate anymore. You've grown into a version of yourself that doesn't need validation to move with authority. And that's exactly why your adversaries, visible or invisible, are uneasy. See, when you were wounded, they were bold. When you were questioning yourself, they were loud. But now that you are steady, now that you are aligned, now that you're no longer leaking energy into places that never deserved it, they don't know how to approach you. Because strength that comes from inner certainty doesn't respond to intimidation. You used to think surviving meant staying small. You thought humility meant self-erasure. You confused loyalty with self-betrayal, and you paid for those misunderstandings with exhaustion. But wisdom has dawned on you now. You know the difference between compassion and access, between forgiveness and reconciliation, between peace and avoidance. That knowledge didn't come free. It was forged in moments where you had to choose yourself without applause. In days where obedience didn't feel rewarding, but you stayed aligned anyway. In nights when the only reassurance came from something deeper than logic whispering, "Keep going." You were never abandoned during those times. You were being trained to walk without dependence on external signals, to move without instruction, to listen inwardly when the noise outside became unreliable. God didn't just see what happened to you, God saw why it happened. Saw the jealousy masked as concern, saw the manipulation disguised as love, saw the subtle ways people tried to benefit from your light while dimming your power. And none of it went unnoticed. Justice doesn't always arrive loudly at first. Sometimes it begins as a quiet reversal, a shift in influence, a loss of leverage, a closing door that once gave others control. And right now, many who once felt comfortable dismissing you are sensing that they no longer hold the position they thought they did. Because something is lifting you, not emotionally, structurally, spiritually, internally. You don't chase anymore. You attract what aligns. You don't argue anymore. You observe. You don't over-explain anymore. You conserve energy. And this version of you, this grounded, aware, discerning version, it's the version the opposition feared you would become. That's why the pressure intensified before it shifted. That's why the resistance spiked just before clarity arrived. Darkness often overplays its hand when it senses its influence ending. And here's the part to let settle in your bones. The battles you survived were proof, not punishment. Proof that you could carry what's coming. Proof that you wouldn't lose yourself when tested. Proof that your character would hold when external circumstances didn't cooperate. You weren't just fighting to get through those seasons. You were fighting to keep your spirit intact, and you did. Now you stand at a threshold not marked by noise, but by knowing. You may not see fireworks yet, you may not have all the answers, but you're no longer confused about who you are, and that alone shifts everything. Those who once stood against you feel it too, even if they can't name it. Something has changed. You're no longer easy to misread, no longer easy to derail, no longer available for the roles they assigned you. You're rising, not because you demanded it, but because you endured long enough for the truth to surface. And this rise isn't accidental, it's overdue. There comes a moment in every chosen life where hidden truths refuse to stay hidden any longer. You're approaching that moment now, not because you demanded answers, and not because you exposed anyone, but because divine justice has a way of surfacing what was buried once the timing is right. What was whispered behind closed doors will not remain there. What was twisted quietly will be straightened publicly, not for revenge, but for restoration. God is about to make something unmistakably clear in your life. The narrative that once painted you as difficult, too intense, or problematic is beginning to collapse under its own weight. People are starting to notice inconsistencies. Stories no longer line up. Energy doesn't lie, and yours has shifted into something steady, grounded, and clean. That alone exposes manipulation without you ever saying a word. What makes this season different is that the justice coming isn't rushed. It's precise, it's undeniable. It doesn't need your involvement to be effective. You are not being asked to fight anymore. You're being asked to stay aligned, to remain honest, to keep choosing integrity even when it would be tempting to react. Because when justice comes from God, it doesn't just clear your name, it reorders the entire environment. You may already be feeling the early signs. Opportunities that once seemed blocked are resurfacing differently. People who overlooked you are suddenly curious. Doors that were shut without explanation are loosening. This isn't coincidence, this is reversal. What once drained you will no longer have access. What once benefited from your silence is losing authority. What once felt like loss is revealing itself as protection in hindsight. And perhaps most importantly, what once made you doubt your path is now confirming it. You're stepping into a season where things begin to make sense, not emotionally, but structurally. Patterns break, cycles end, and the weight you've carried for years begins to lift in ways you didn't expect. Not everything resolves at once, but enough shifts to remind you that you were never wrong for believing there was more. This is a season of quiet vindication. And here's the healing truth many people never hear. Justice doesn't always punish others. It often relocates you, moves you out of harm's reach, elevates you beyond accusation, removes you from situations where your energy was constantly under attack. That's victory too. What's coming now is not about proving anything to anyone. It's about reclaiming what was delayed. Your peace, your confidence, your sense of direction, your ability to trust your inner voice again. And it's okay if part of you feels cautious. That caution is wisdom, not fear. You've learned not to rush what needs to be built solidly. You've learned that sudden emotional highs without grounding often lead back to disappointment. So you move differently now, slower but clearer, softer but stronger. God honors that maturity. There is also a release happening, a healing that doesn't require you to reopen old wounds to justify it. You don't need apologies to move on. You don't need explanations to feel whole. Closure is arriving in the form of understanding yourself more deeply than ever before. You're realizing you weren't too much. You were just in spaces that couldn't hold you. You weren't unlovable. You were surrounded by people incapable of healthy love. You weren't failing. You were being redirected. That realization alone can feel emotional, even overwhelming. Let it. Healing doesn't always come quietly. Sometimes it arrives as grief for the version of you that tried so hard to be accepted. Sometimes it arrives as relief that your intuition was right all along. Allow that healing. You earned it. And now, as this justice unfolds and this reversal takes shape, you're being asked to participate differently than before, not by striving, but by choosing alignment daily, choosing rest when you once chose overgiving, choosing honesty when you once chose silence, choosing your own well-being without guilt. If this message is speaking to you, pause for a second and acknowledge what you've survived. Not with pride, but with appreciation. Put a hand on your chest, take a breath, and recognize that you're still here, still open, still becoming. That's not by accident. And here's where you step into your role, not just as a survivor, but as a conscious participant in what's unfolding. If you feel called, affirm this shift out loud. Say that you are ready to receive what aligns with your soul, that you release the weight of defending yourself, that you trust divine timing more than human perception. Engagement matters, not because you need validation, but because intention focuses energy. If you're watching this, take a moment to ground yourself in agreement. Like, share, or simply sit with the truth that you are entering a season that reflects who you've become, not who you were forced to be. Victory doesn't always arrive as celebration. Sometimes it arrives as peace where chaos used to live, as confidence where doubt once echoed, as clarity where confusion held power. And this victory, it's not loud, it's stable, sustainable, rooted. You're no longer fighting to be seen. You're being revealed. When you look back honestly, one question tends to surface again and again, even if you've never said it out loud. Why you? Why the attacks, the resistance, the misunderstandings, the constant feeling of being singled out, even when you were doing your best to stay peaceful? That question isn't self-pity, it's awareness beginning to sharpen, and the answer is layered, not simple. Some of the pressure you faced came from what you carry, not what you did. Your presence disrupts systems built on pretense, not intentionally, not aggressively, but energetically. People sense it before they can explain it. You reflect truth back to environments that survive on distortion, and that alone is threatening. When someone is avoiding their own healing, proximity to someone self-aware can feel unbearable. That's where many of the attacks actually began. There's a paradox few talk about. Light doesn't just illuminate paths, it exposes fractures. And not everyone wants exposure. Some people would rather label, dismiss, or undermine you than confront what your authenticity awakens in them. That doesn't make them evil, but it makes them reactive. And reactivity often masks insecurity. Another paradox you lived through is this. The more patient you were, the more others tested you. The kinder you remained, the more some mistook it for weakness. This is a psychological pattern, not a personal failure. People who operate from fear seek control, and control is easiest to exert over those who lead with empathy. But empathy without boundaries becomes a battleground. You didn't attract manipulation because you were naive. You attracted it because you were open, because you believed in potential, because you saw people not just as they were, but as who they could be. That's beautiful. But it's also dangerous when discernment hasn't caught up with compassion, and the universe, in its own uncompromising way, trained you through experience what no warning ever could. Pain became your teacher not because you deserved it, but because your soul learns through depth. There's also a spiritual law at play that often confuses chosen ones. Opposition increases before alignment stabilizes. When you are close to stepping fully into who you are, misdirection intensifies. Distractions appear, old patterns resurface. Doubt knocks louder than ever. This isn't regression, it's resistance trying to delay inevitability. Think of it like this. If nothing meaningful was going to come from your evolution, nothing would try so hard to interrupt it. Even the people who hurt you were unknowingly participating in refinement. They revealed where you were still overgiving. They exposed where you were still seeking approval. They highlighted where you hadn't fully claimed authority over your emotional space. That doesn't excuse harm, but it redeems the lesson. And as uncomfortable as it is to admit, you outgrew some people before they were ready to let you go. That dynamic often makes others act out of character. When someone senses they're losing influence over you, their behavior shifts. They may become cold, critical, or suddenly competitive. Some try to reassert dominance through subtle digs or guilt. Others disappear entirely. This isn't randomness, it's the psychology of losing access. What you're experiencing now is the aftermath of that loss of access. And here's where your soul's mission comes into focus. You were never meant to rescue everyone. You weren't sent here to absorb pain endlessly or prove your worth through sacrifice. Your role is not martyrdom, it's embodiment. To live aligned, to model integrity, to choose truth even when it costs comfort, to show that depth doesn't have to mean suffering forever. Your life is a signal more than a sermon. That's why your healing doesn't require explanations. That's why your growth doesn't need announcements. When you shift internally, the world rearranges accordingly. People either adjust or fall out of alignment with your path. Both outcomes serve the mission. Another paradox worth naming: the moment you stop trying to be understood, you become clear. Confusion fades when self-trust solidifies. The anxiety you once felt wasn't because you were wrong. It was because you were resisting your own inner knowing in order to maintain peace externally. But peace that costs authenticity is never sustainable. Now you're learning a deeper balance: softness with strength, awareness with action, compassion without self-erasure. These are not traits you adopt overnight, they're earned. And every confrontation, disappointment, and redirection played a role in shaping them. From a psychological lens, those who challenged you often projected what they refused to face themselves. Insecurity seeks mirrors, and your clarity became one. Growth threatens stagnation not by force, but by contrast. That contrast made you a target long before you were conscious of it. But targets aren't chosen randomly. You were marked by resilience early, by intuition, by a capacity for transformation that doesn't break under pressure. That's why the hits came clustered, why the lessons felt repetitive until they finally clicked. Your soul wasn't being tested, it was being calibrated. And now that calibration is nearing completion. You're no longer asking why this happened to you, you're asking what it shaped in you. And that single shift in perspective changes everything. It moves you from victim to author, from confusion to clarity, from reaction to intention. This is where your true authority comes from, not dominance, but congruence. Your thoughts align with your actions. Your boundaries match your values. Your energy reflects your priorities. This is the version of you that can't be manipulated because it doesn't need approval to operate. And that's the real reason the attacks had to stop eventually, because they no longer work. Your soul remembers its assignment now, and it's walking forward, not hardened, not rushed, but finally fully awake. Take a breath right now, because this is the moment where everything settles into place. Not with fireworks, not with grand announcements, but with a deep inner recognition that you finally see yourself clearly. You are not who the pain tried to convince you that you were. You are not the mistakes. You are not the delays. You are not the versions of yourself that had to survive instead of thrive. You are the chosen one, and that doesn't mean flawless. It means faithful. It means aware. It means you kept your heart open in a world that repeatedly gave you reasons to shut it down. It means you listened to your intuition even when it contradicted what others told you to believe. It means you endured long enough for wisdom to replace confusion. And now, you're standing in a different posture entirely. What once rattled you no longer has the same effect. What once demanded an emotional response now barely reaches you, not because you've gone numb, but because you've grown secure. You no longer need to be defensive about who you are. You don't need to explain your boundaries. You don't need to shrink to keep others comfortable. You know who you are now. The future unfolding ahead of you is gentler, even if it's still challenging. The challenges won't come to break you anymore. They'll come to refine choices, not identity. To strengthen direction, not question worth. You're entering a season where alignment brings ease, not exhaustion. Where effort produces results instead of resistance. Where peace becomes a baseline, not a rare moment. And no, you didn't miss your moment. You weren't late. You weren't overlooked. You were protected. Some of the delays you resented kept you from settling for too little. Some of the closed doors saved you from futures that would have drained your spirit slowly. Some of the loneliness sharpened your discernment so that when connection returns, it's real, mutual, and grounded. What's coming next won't require you to abandon yourself to receive it. You'll notice this shift in subtle ways, in how you make decisions faster, in how guilt no longer controls your yes, in how rest finally feels restorative instead of anxious, in how people either meet you with respect or naturally fall away without drama. That's not loss. That's alignment finalizing itself. And here's the most comforting truth of all. You don't have to carry everything alone anymore. The pressure to figure out every step, to prove every choice, to justify your growth, it's lifting. Support arrives differently now, sometimes through people, sometimes through timing, sometimes simply through clarity itself. You are held, not just spiritually, but practically, circumstantially, emotionally. Even when uncertainty appears, it won't feel like free fall. It will feel like guidance, like a quiet hand steadying your back as you move forward. If there's anything this journey has taught you, it's that your inner voice has always known the way. And now that you trust it fully, life responds differently. You respond differently. So keep choosing what resonates rather than what impresses. Keep honoring your energy. Keep listening when your body, mind, and spirit speak in agreement. This is how you stay connected. This is how you remain grounded. And if this message found you at a moment where you needed reassurance, let that be your sign. You don't need 1,000 confirmations. You just need to stay present to what feels true. Take a second now and affirm it quietly or out loud if you can. You are safe to move forward. You are supported in becoming. You are allowed to receive good without struggle. If this resonated, stay connected to yourself first, and then to spaces that nourish that connection. Return to messages like this when you feel the pull to doubt again, not because you're weak, but because growth sometimes needs reminders. You're not walking this alone. You never were. And as you move into what's next, do it gently, confidently, with the calm knowing that whatever unfolds, you are equipped, protected, and deeply seen. Until the next moment of clarity finds you, keep walking in alignment. You're right where you're meant to be.